Hello and welcome to our third episode of the City Health and Wellbeing podcast. I'm your host, Vishal Mehta. I'm a senior scientist with the Stockholm Environment Institute, SEI. I'm based in the US Center in Davis, California. SEI is an international nonprofit that works in several countries at the intersection of science and policy. We are interested in unpacking what makes a city a healthy environment where every citizen can have the opportunity to thrive. In our third episode, we introduce one of the outputs of the City Health and Wellbeing Initiative, namely SEI's Urban Toolbox for Livable Cities, which is a collection of digital tools that support the understanding of different dimensions of urban sustainability. I am delighted to have two of my colleagues, Diane Archer and Rosie Witton, join us today. Rosie is a research fellow with our SEI Oxford office on climate change adaptation, and Diane Archer is a senior research fellow in our SEI Asia office in Bangkok, Thailand. Thank you for joining us, Rosie and Diane, and welcome. We are delighted to have you. And how about you introduce yourselves? You'll do a much better job than I would. Go ahead, Rosie.
Hi, I'm Rosie Witton. I'm a research fellow at the SEI Oxford Centre in the UK. I work mainly on projects relating to climate change adaptation, particularly in mountain environments or in cities and urban environments. And I also have a focus on citizen engagement and stakeholder engagement in some of our projects as well.
Interesting, Rosie. So, are there particular countries you tend to work in, or just depend on?
No particular countries. For a lot of our projects, it seems to be global. For our mountains project in particular, we do work globally. So we have partners in a variety of different regions. For some of our projects, we are EU focused. So we focus on the European, or we focus on Europe. I think that's about it.
Thank you, Rosie. Diane, over to you.
So my name is Diane Archer. I'm a senior research fellow at SEI Asia. We are located in Bangkok. I lead the urban research cluster. We're a team of 3 research associates and myself.
And we also have a research fellow, Ploy, who's working on fossil fuel emissions.
Yes, and we do research on issues relating to achieving sustainable and inclusive urban areas. So our projects revolve around city health and well-being, air pollution, solid waste management, especially plastic waste management, and also issues around climate change resilience and the role of nature-based solutions in cities.
Thanks, Diane. Diane, you forgot to mention you're also the co-lead with Steve Sinderby of the City Health and Wellbeing Initiative. And so it's perfect that you're here with us. We spoke with Steve on the first episode a few weeks ago. It's just been released. And now we are here with you and Rosie. So let's get right into it. The next set of questions and discussion will be about what exactly is the SEI Urban Toolbox for Livable Cities. For short, for this podcast, for the rest of the podcast, I'm just going to call it the Urban Toolbox. And what is it really? Where does it live? How was it designed? And what's its purpose? I know that it's one of the many outputs of the initiative, but it's got so many tools on it that are actually beyond what we did, as I remember in this initiative, that I'm kind of guessing that it's a compilation of useful digital tools and software that can be used for practitioners and planners in urban areas. Does that sound about right, Diane?
Yes. So the SEI Urban Toolbox for Livable Cities basically is an attempt to gather various tools developed across SEI
Hmm.
in one place and to bring all the tools that may not have been developed specifically for urban usage, but that are relevant for urban context and bring them together in a single toolbox, essentially. The City Health and Wellbeing Initiative has been running for 5 years now, so we're in the 6th and final year this year. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to bring together some of the tools that we used as part of the City Health and Wellbeing Initiative, but also to pull together other tools that we think would be useful for city stakeholders like urban planners, but also civil society groups in cities as well, to enable them to foster, for example, more inclusive planning processes, or to gather the necessary data that they need to inform planning processes. Just one note, it's not necessarily just digital tools. So a lot of the tools are more like guides in terms of, how would you facilitate a process of, for example, community engagement. What ways can you do this in? And it would offer guidance in terms of this is how we could, for example, structure discussions, or these are some of the activities that could be done in a participatory way in order to enable a more participatory approach and a more inclusive approach to urban planning. But obviously, some of the tools are also digital. So, for example, the LEAP tool or the WEEP tool are very much relying on software as well. So it's a mix of different types of tools.
I see. Yes. Rosie had sent me a list of these tools that I'm just looking at right now. And I had some thoughts, but Rosie, would you like to add something to what Diane said?
So yes, I think Diane summarized that very well. As part of the Urban Toolbox, this is, as this is going to be one of the outcomes of the City Health and Wellbeing Initiative, we are aiming for this to be an online toolbox, and we're going to be hosting this on WeAdapt as an online network. For those of you who don't know what WeAdapt is, it's an online space for researchers, practitioners, and policymakers who are working on climate change adaptation and related areas or topics. It's a place for them to share information about their projects and learn from each other. This has built a WeAdapt community over the last couple of years. It consists of many different users and organizations, including international and national non-governmental organizations, government ministries, universities and research institutes, as well as grassroots charities. And so the Urban Toolbox that we've designed and created will be hosted on this. And the tools that we have mentioned or found to include will be created as articles, and so the information will be available on each tool, and then there will be corresponding case studies which can be visualized on a map and will give more information or contextual information about how each of the tools can be used.
Excellent. So, how was it designed, this particular Urban Toolbox?
So we designed it through a 4-phase process, and we tried to make this as sort of collaborative and co-design, like user co-design approach as possible. So first, within the Chew team, we carried out an external review of what existing tools or toolboxes there are that are relevant to urban settings. So, for example, any academic papers or any materials online, and what kind of target audiences they have, in order to see what's already out there and what SEI could add value to. Secondly, we did an internal scoping of SEI tools. So SEI produces quite a lot of tools and methods. So we reviewed all of these and identified ones that had either been used in an urban setting already or had potential to be applied in an urban setting. So we reviewed what materials were available, what kind of guidance material was available for users, and on top of the Chew project's own tools, or including the Chew project's own tools, we identified over 20 projects with tools that were relevant to an urban setting. So following these two phases, the third step was a co-design workshop with urban stakeholders. So we organized both online workshops and face-to-face workshops with city stakeholders in various cities, including in the two Chew state case study cities, which are Udon Thani in Thailand and Nakuru in Kenya, but also additional meetings in Kampala, in Lusaka, in Kigali, and in Bogota. And these were workshops where we tried to identify some of the key urban challenges faced by the city stakeholders, and the types of tools that they can use to help them to solve these problems, and use discussion formats such as, for example, a strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, or SWOT analysis, to see if you had this particular tool, what value would it have for you? And we also discussed issues such as like what makes a tool accessible in terms of language, format, whether has to be used online or not, things like that. That would help us with the design of the toolbox to make it as useful as possible. And then finally, the fourth phase was an internal workshop within SEI to make sure that we had full coverage of the urban related tools that we wanted to include, how we should categorize them in the toolbox, and what elements of design should we apply to the toolbox to ensure that it meets the needs of our planned users, and also based on the feedback that we gained through the workshops with city stakeholders. And following those four phases, the tool was then put together.
That sounds pretty rigorous and time consuming, actually, Diane. So you
Yes,
mentioned, sorry, I was
sorry, I
just,
was just going to say,
go ahead. That's fine.
It's taken over a year, so we're just
Hmm.
coming towards the end of it now. Yeah.
Well, I had two questions, and maybe I can ask Rosie this to start off. Is, Diane mentioned something about language, and I think about language a lot in our international work. Me myself being from India and speaking various languages. So, are there plans to translate it into different languages? Is that already happening? What are your thoughts on that, Rosie?
So one of the kind of best features, or one of the really good features about WeAdapt and hosting this toolbox on WeAdapt, is that there is a plugin automatically on the website which allows you to translate it, or articles and case studies, into a variety of different languages. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it is effectively a Google Translate plugin. So obviously, while there may be some limitations, it is at least a very good starting point. So hopefully a lot of the articles and case studies would be easily translatable via that feature.
So that brings me back to what Diane was saying about who are the different possible users of this tool. And when you described how about the language translation and so on, it seems like it's meant for a pretty broad audience overall, the collection of tools.
Yes, it definitely is, and I think this does vary tool to tool. So I can't give an exact answer, but a lot of the tools can maybe focused on participatory action for different communities or residents in a neighborhood, for example. So it does vary very much from community-based projects all the way to potentially helping policymakers and governments view different things and maybe in a different manner, or use these tools to support some of their work. So it really does vary depending on the tool.
Perfect. One of the other things I think Diane mentioned was that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a collection of SEI tools right now.
Yes, that's right. Currently it is tools that have been created and used on SEI projects. Yeah.
And is there any effort to or thinking about expanding it to tools that are SEI as well as broader developed?
Diane, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So as part of our scoping review, we identified that there were already some other urban toolboxes and toolkits out there. Quite a lot of them are like indices, like a city, resilience index, or things like that. And we think what we can potentially do is try to connect with the owners or the creators of other tools that are relevant in urban settings, and see how we can collaborate or sort of co-share, co-promote our urban toolboxes, because we try to make or position our urban toolbox so that it would add value to what's already out there rather than duplicate any existing tools. So we see that our toolbox has potential to be used alongside other existing urban tools as well, to offer a full set of tools to urban stakeholders.
Perfect. So I guess I wanted to give our audience a sense of what kinds of tools there are. And And so I'm going back to Rosie's list that Rosie had emailed a while ago. So I see that this is one category which is about citizen science, citizen participation. There are tools here in the list on participatory GIS as well as on citizen science and air pollution. There's also a tool on well-being surveys that's related to this that I see. There's another set of tools which is about basically software, WEEP and LEAP, which are used extensively in the US Center where I am. WEEP is the Water Evaluation and Planning System. It's a water resources decision planning platform that we use a lot in the US Center and also in other centers. And LEAP is our low emissions analysis platform that's used for climate mitigation studies. And I see a tool here called MapStakes. I have not heard about it, so I'm looking forward to going in and finding out more about it. There's also an excellent tool called SDG Synergies that I see. That's a Sustainable Development Goals Synergies. It's a tool that helps to understand the trade offs and synergies or coherence between different sustainable development goals, targets, and goals, depending on which projects you want to pursue to achieve these goals. What I can make out from this is that there are certain categories that leap out. One is that one way to categorize them is what you said earlier, Diane, is that some of them are guides. For example, PGIS, participatory GIS, is probably a guide on how to do participatory mapping and a guide on the use of certain tools, probably open source. Am I right, Diane?
Yeah, so in this context, we used PGIS in the CHU
Mm-hmm.
initiative, where we had physical printed out maps. And so the toolkit will also explain how this can be done,
Correct.
and what you can use PGIS for. So in the context of city health and well-being, we used it to get community members to map out places in the city where they felt most relaxed, where they went to socialize, and also places in the city where they felt stressful. And this helped us to create a map of the city that highlighted places where people, where levels of well-being might be higher or lower,
Right.
depending on how people perceive those areas.
Any other guidance you can provide on these tools in terms of specific tools that I may have missed in that list, Rosie?
There's not any specific tools that I can provide guidance on, but just to say, obviously these are the tools that we are initially uploading into the Urban Toolbox,
Mm-hmm.
and this is going to be a continuously developing process. So as more tools are created or come out, obviously they can be added to the toolbox in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully included as a moving forwards. Hopefully it's continually updated.
Yeah, that leads to my one of my next questions, Rosie, was is there a plan to keep developing it, keep it alive and current? Because as you know, like for example, in mapping, my in one of my first classes in graduate school, my teacher or professor at the time said, as soon as you create a map, it's redundant because it's already in the past. So I keep thinking about that and what are the plans to keep this alive and current?
Yes, so for the until the end of this year at least, we are hoping to make sure that all of the SEI tools that we've gathered and reviewed over the last few years are included into this Urban Toolbox. And then hopefully moving forwards after that, it will be a continuous process for members of SEI who are on projects where they're using these different tools or creating new tools
Mm-hmm.
will want to upload their tools to the Urban Toolbox. It should be something that people can do themselves. So hopefully that will help with the continuity of it in the future.
Right. Do you want to add anything to that point, Diane?
Not on that point specifically, but I just want to go back to the question of the categories of different
Mm,
types of tools. And I think so within Readapt or within the toolkit, they will be four different categories, but more generally, you could say that some tools are focusing, for example, on what available monitoring tools there are. Some tools are focusing more on how to encourage collaborative and participatory decision making. Some tools are more about how to manage urban resources. And then some tools are specifically on the topic of development of infrastructure, such as green infrastructure or water, sanitation, and hygiene. So that's one way of categorizing them, but there's different ways of cutting the cake.
Got it. I guess the other point I wanted to ask is, has this toolkit already been launched? It sounds like it's going to be launched by the end of the year or the middle of the year. And how does one find it on the WeAdapt platform? I think it'll be good to share how one accesses this whole suite of tools with the audience, with a URL, which we can include when the podcast is released as part of the information material.
Yes, of course. So we are aiming to have the Urban Toolbox published online in the next few weeks. So fingers crossed it's in the imminent future. And it will be available on the WeAdapt website. To get to WeAdapt, it's www.weadapt.org. And then within that, you can go to the different networks available. I believe it's there's a tab for learning. And if you click into the network section, there are all the current networks available on WeAdapt there, and that is where our Urban Toolbox will be sitting as well. So I unfortunately don't have a link for it just yet, but hopefully in the next week or two.
Thanks very much, Rosie. So, Diane, you had also mentioned that there would be a policy brief that would be coming out. And can you let us know a little bit more about that?
Sure. So the policy brief is ready to launch as soon as the website or the tool goes live. And it basically just provides some context about how we came to design this Urban Toolbox and what how it can be useful for city stakeholders and how we've sought to respond to their needs in creating this toolbox. So hopefully it provides the necessary background to encourage people to use the toolbox as well. And in terms of launching, as Rosie said, we're planning to launch it very soon. We will have a couple of events in Africa in June where we plan to launch the toolbox, and then it will be a sort of gradual launch throughout the year. So, for example, at other events such as the Asia Pacific Urban Forum, which isn't happening until October, we also plan to have a session on the toolbox as well. But there might also be other events where we showcase the toolbox. So keep an eye out for those.
Perfect. I guess my last question, and I want to thank you both for joining us. I know it's nighttime for you, Diane, in Bangkok right now, and it's also evening for Gokul, our producer in India. My last question or thought really is, how does one monitor the use of these tools? Is there a monitoring and evaluation and learning system in place for tracking the use of these tools? Rosie, I'll put you on the spot there.
Okay, thanks. So I one of the key features on WeAdapt as well is that you do have this ability to connect with the authors. So each author of a tool or whoever might have used the tool, their profile on WeAdapt is connected to the tool article. So, if anyone is ever interested in finding out more information about where or how the tool was created or where it's been used, they can reach out to anyone who might have used it previously if that information is available in their profile. And that just helps increase the collaboration and communications surrounding each of the tools. And it also, helps provide feedback if anyone does use the tool and has any concerns or any feedback to provide. So that's one of the key ways to do it. Diane, I don't know if you wanted to add any information on our monitoring and evaluation techniques.
So yes, I just want to reiterate what Rosie said,
Right.
that basically that was one of the key reasons we chose WeAdapt, because it's not just a one-way platform. There is an opportunity to build a community of practice around the use of the tools. So we hope that we will be able to see how much usage various tools are getting, and whether there are any concerns or feedback from users that we can then integrate into further iterations of the various tools as well. I think our plan is also, for example, if we apply a particular tool in a setting, we would try and create more material, for example, like how-to video or showing a tool being used in practice that could then be uploaded to the platform to generate additional material for Toolbox users too.
Perfect. Well, I think that's about all we have time for this episode. I want to thank Rosie and Diane for being with us in your different time zones, especially Diane. Thank you for joining
Thanks.
us.
Bye.
And this has been the third episode of the City Health and Wellbeing Initiative. Thank you and good night.